Hello, welcome back to Zanthyst with Zanthyst Gaming, and we are here today with a build guide for Wolcen. This Wolcen build guide is focused around using two-handed weapons in order to be able to smash opponents, auto-dash between things, and just cause general chaos and mayhem. In the bottom right-hand corner you can see some gameplay video going on of how the build runs out, and we'll be talking about what the build actually is on the main screen here. So if we start off with our skills, we have on our bars Brutal Strike, which has been slotted to get reduced skill costs, allowing us to spam it a little bit more, extra damage, and makes it so that when you kill a target with it, it automatically applies a second Brutal Strike. This is really amazing for clearing out giant packs of enemies. For our Q, we have Laceration to add an additional bleed effect. It has a wider range and it has more stacks on it. For a movement ability, we have Holy Dive. At the moment, I only have the reduced skill cost, but you could also do the cooldown. Either way is fine. And then we'd want probably the Stun on landing for the second trait. This is useful for any sort of dungeons or just mobility in general. You want to get from one unreachable area to another. You just pop out, you do a quick W, and you jump from one place to the other. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's very handy. On our E, we have Blade Slinger. It is talented to have knife belts, which gives us an extra charge. Then we get Sharpened Blade, which increases the critical chance. Then we take Incision, which gives a critical chance modifier when you have more charges. So the more charges you have, the better it is. So the thing you want to do with this is just send one out at a time and not spam it. And you'll see why with our top rune. We have Blade Slinger has a chance to jump to another nearby enemy when it performs a critical strike, which is really good. You could also take it, the critical chance modifier, to be higher on lower life enemies, but I think the bounce is better. You already have enough boost with the other critical chance talents. And then at the highest level you take, killing an enemy with Blade Slinger will instantly refill the charge on it. So when you crit, you pretty much kill the target unless it's a very high health target. So what you're using this for is to take out archers or warlocks or mages that are outside of your auto dash range, or that you don't want to have to reposition to take out because you have other fish to fry. Pretty handy ability. We have Killer Instincts, which we gain through the passive tree, which we'll be going over in just a second. Killer Instincts will apply 4 stacks of frailty and 4 stacks of weakness on the target. Weakness makes it so that they deal less damage overall, and frailty makes it so that you deal more damage with everything other than physical. It's a bit of a bummer because physical is the main thing you're doing with this build, but a trick that you can use to make use of this is you can stack different potions. So you can put a bleed and a burn potion on your bar, as well as the weakening potion, and that will add extra stacks of other elemental damage that will scale with the Killer Instinct. We have to have Killer Instinct because we're using it in our passive tree to get to some very important auto dash talents. Infiltration gives us extra movement speed just passively, and we can use it to go invisible and engage on enemies super hard if we want to. And Battle Stance, Battle Art is used to give us extra attack speed, but it does lower our defenses. It also gives you, oh no, it does not give you extra movement speed, I take that back. Our basic two-handed attack is like so. It gets increased attack speed as we kill enemies, but that's basically what it looks like. Now let's have a look at our stats. A character sheet. We poured everything into Ferocity. Ferocity increases our attack speed considerably, as well as increases our critical damage modifier. And that's important because our build focuses on doing auto dashes that are guaranteed crits, and our Brutal Strikes hitting super hard. So that's the main thing there. Our crit chance overall is relatively slow at only 6%, but with our roll thing it gives a guaranteed crit on auto dash, which we'll go into in just a second. Passive tree, there we go. In the passive tree we start off on Legionary, unlocks the Battle Stance, which gives us increased attack speed. Going down we get reduced rage costs of spells and extra ferocity. Then we get offensive mode, more rage generated when we're in Battle Stance. We get 3% additional physical damage. Keep in mind all the different physical damage buffs that we're getting because those are all really important. They scale up our damage massively. We also get 8% damage done with swords and broadswords. We will be using swords and broadswords. Even though it doesn't look like it, that weapon I'm using is a sword. It's actually a broadsword. 75% extra rage generation when your rage bar is empty, basically meaning when you dash in you deal 75% extra rage. You get 75% extra rage. You get a full rage bar almost instantly, is what this equals. 4% increase physical damage and suspend Umbra generation for 4 seconds when your rage becomes full. So when you do hit that full rage bonus, you get a 4% damage buff. Then you get 2% ferocity if your rage is full, also decreasing linearly with your rage level, plus 1 ferocity. Outbreak gives your dash rage on hit, ensuring that 75% combined with rage on hit with dash gives us that 100% rage for the other 2 bonuses. And then we get plus 0.1% to damage of your dash during 2 seconds for each rage point you spend. So you dash, you spend some rage, and then your next auto dash will do extra damage. Change of mind, plus 6% to your ferocity for a short moment when switching targets. Remember, our ferocity scales our critical hit chance. So if we auto dash from one target to another, every time we switch to a new target, it gives us that 6% bonus on top of everything else we're getting for ferocity bonuses. Rush gives your range 25% extra range and plus 1 ferocity. And then Impact gives you 10% increased damage to your dash, giving you more upfront damage with your dash. And with some other talents or other passes we're going to take elsewhere, we're going to guaranteed crit on that dash. We get a 10% attack speed modifier for when we don't instantly kill an enemy with our auto dash, and we get 1 agility, giving us a little bit more critical chance scaling. We get 5% damage increase with two-handed weapons. We are actually dual wielding two-handed weapons, which is why we took this talent. Then we pop across to Brutality, which gives a 3% buff to all direct damage. That would be our auto dash. Does not help status ailments, so it will not help our bleeds that we are inflicting, but those are just kind of secondary effects. Mastery of Sword gives us 10% damage done with swords and broadswords, which we're using, 2 agility. Overkill Ferocity gives us a 3% bonus on top of all other effects, plus 1 to ferocity. Sorry, 3% ferocity bonus. Unyielding allows lock attacks with our swords instead of having to have a shield to block, which is pretty handy for defenses. Toughness makes it so that when you overkill, you now get 3% toughness on top of any other effects you'd be getting. And overkill is when you kill a monster and it does more damage than it actually requires to kill them with a critical hit. Eminent is 15% increase to your presence level and plus 1 to ferocity. That's not as important, but it's needed to get us over here to Path of Glory, which gives us 20% extra ferocity, minus 30% to willpower, but we don't really care about that, and plus 2 to ferocity. And then we take Titan Strength, which lets us wield two-handed melee weapons as if they were one-handed, which basically allows us to dual wield broadswords. Or if you really wanted to, you could do a broadsword and a shield, but I think dual wielding the broadswords is the best way to go. Down this way we take Dismember, which gives us a 15% increased chance to perform overkills and 2 extra ferocity. Then we get Everlasting Ire, which gives a 35% bonus to the duration of all bonuses that we get from overkills. Remember, we get 3% bonus toughness and 2% bonus ferocity when we overkill. We then take a 10% straight critical chance upgrade and 1 agility. This helps ensure that we get crits when we're not doing our auto dashes, and helps us get more crits with our brutal strikes when we need it. Born Killer gives us 10 more critical damage, which means our crits hit 10%, or hit 10, I'm not sure if it's 10% harder or 10 scaling damage harder. I'm unsure about that, but it's 10 critical damage boost. 5% attack speed means we hit harder when we don't instantly kill. 5% dodge chance for some survivability, and a little bit of agility for some crit chance. And then we take Punisher, which gives us Killer Instinct and 4 ferocity. It also opens up the path to our auto dash talents down here. In our auto dash talent tree, we take Coated Blades, which gives us 15% chance to inflict bleed whenever we deal rend damage. We will be doing rend damage with our Lacerate, which means we'll get extra bleed damage. 10% to your chance to perform overkills with critical strikes, which basically means when we crit, we have a better chance to overkill. And then we get some more agility. This is where things start getting interesting. Overkills now grant you a 3% agility bonus on top of their other effects, and we get 2 agility. You'll remember that our agility was quite low originally, but that 3% agility boost combined with other stacking effects boosts it up quite a bit. Killer Instinct now also inflicts weakness stacks, which is pretty nice. We already talked about what that does earlier in the video. +1 to agility. Hammer of Doom. Now this is where our real damage scaling for this build comes in. This increases by 50% the critical damage modifier of your dash against any enemy marked with Killer Instinct. So in other words, if you mark an enemy with Killer Instinct and you crit, you do 50% more damage than you would have before. So if you're critting for 10,000, then instead you're critting for 15,000. If you're critting for 30,000, then instead you're critting for 45,000. It's actually crazy. It's a big boost in damage. And if you watch the Rhykker kill in the gameplay section down below, you'll notice that his health is going down relatively slowly, and then I brutal strike a couple times, and the first one doesn't crit, but the second one crits, and his health bar goes from half full to gone instantly. And that's because of this talent right here. Aggression increases the damage done by your dash attacks by 12% and increases the critical chance of your dash by 6%. Not as important because we're going to take automatic crits with our rolls, so we'll have automatic crits on our dashes most of the time. This is really important. Heavy load. Your dash can hit several enemies around the target, so basically it does splash damage with your dash, which means you jump into a pack of 4 enemies and you kill them all with a single dash attack, which is great. This is also amazing too. Cancels your dash cooldown for each kill and gives your increases your dash critical chance by 10% for 3 seconds, +3 to ferocity. So if we're going between packs and we're not rolling between every pack just because we want to move quickly, this will boost our critical chance as we jump from pack to pack. And also it makes it so that our auto dash has essentially no cooldown, which is just amazing. Now if we come up this way, let's look at the Thief section. The Thief ability gives us the ability to stealth as well as passive movement speed. Runner gives us 6% passive movement speed and 1 agility. Evasion gives us 1% to movement speed for each enemy in a 7-meter radius and +1 to agility. Weakness Exploit is +1 dodge chance for each harmed enemy in a 5-meter radius and +1 agility. Exhilarating Strike gives us a 1% bonus to movement speed for 8 seconds on hit, stackable up to 10 times, but reset when you're hit. So basically, if we don't auto kill the guy and they're able to hit us, we lose that bonus movement speed, but as we're dashing from pack to pack, if we're one-shotting them, which we do most of the time, we keep that movement speed buff for 8 seconds, which is quite significant. This is an important talent as well. It's Quickness. Increases your attack speed depending on your total movement speed, and that gives us 3 agility. So basically, if we jump on a target and we're not going to get the auto kill, like a Rhykker for instance, this gives us attack speed bonus equal to our movement speed. Which, if you remember, from our Thief we passively gained movement speed. Then we gain 6% here, 1% for every enemy in the area, and then we gain extra movement speed when we get kills. So we can get anywhere from like 20 to 30% movement speed, so 20 to 30% more attack speed. It's pretty significant buff and damage. Mostly useful for bosses, not too useful for the common enemies. We also took some points in Hrunther. We don't grab Hunting Grounds, we don't worry about that, it's not on our bar. You could theoretically find a way to work it in, I suppose, but I don't use it. Hrunther Quick Targeting gives us 3% attack speed and 1 agility. This is a placeholder node, which means that by taking it, it doesn't spend a point. It just lets us move up the path. It's just because it's not implemented yet. So we move up the path through some placeholders. And then we grab Aggravated Shots, which we really don't care about. It's just there to get us into the next tree. It gives us some range damage bleed effect. I guess when we're throwing knives, it has a chance to inflict bleed on critical strikes, so that's good because our knives critical strike a lot, but it's so-so. The more important thing though is it gets us over here into this tree, which is the Trickster Tree. Now the Trickster Tree has lots of auto dash talents, and that's why we're going here. In the Trickster Tree, we're going to take 1% bonus to all attributes during 3 seconds when we dodge or block an attack. We do dodge a decent amount because we have quite a few talents that give us extra dodge. Then we get 2% bonus to critical chance during 4 seconds each time you use a stamina point, stackable up to 10 times, and +1 agility. Stamina points are used when you roll, and that's going to be very important because a super important part of our build is this next talent that gives us extra 15% extra dodge roll distance, which gives us more mobility and +1 agility. And then critical roll. Your next hit is always critical right after performing a dodge roll, which means when we dodge roll and then we dash strike, it's guaranteed critical. If we dodge roll and then we brutal strike, it's guaranteed critical. This is how you get your big bursts of damage and the main crux of this build combined with everything else. Now the rest of this is just stuff that boosts our auto dash damage by a ton, but we'll go over that too. Concussive dash increases the damage of your dash by 8% and gives us a 2% bonus to the critical damage of our dash. Remember, down here we also have that's not it. Here we go. We also have 12% bonus to the, or 6% bonus to critical chance and 12% bonus to the damage. So an extra 8% straight damage and 2% critical damage is pretty good. Reduce the cooldown of your dash by 20%. This is in addition to any cooldown reduction you have through stamina potions. So that's pretty nice. +1 ferocity. Debilitating charge. Snares by 20% for 5 seconds all enemies hit by your dash. So when we dash strike into enemies, it snares them by 20% for 5 seconds. Rough Trick. +10% to physical damage for 2.5 seconds after performing a dash. This scales up our brutal strikes damage. Charge gives us a 15% attack speed bonus for 1.5 seconds after performing a dash. This is on top of all the other attack speed bonuses we have. Offensive mobility causes your next dash will always be free for 2 seconds after performing a dodge roll. So in other words, even if we don't kill the target, it's not going to use our dash charge. But if we dodge roll and we get the critical, we're going to kill the target most of the time. But if it's like on a boss, you can roll, crit dash, roll, crit dash, roll, crit dash, roll, crit dash 4 times. And then after the last roll, hit a brutal strike. And that's going to be your optimal damage. I actually didn't even do that in the Grogr fight. And then you take lethal strikes, which gives you 3% bonus to your physical damage each second, stackable up to 10 times, reset when you're hit. And it gives us 3 extra ferocity. So as long as we're avoiding hits, we're going to get just massive damage boost to our character. And then we go with Lethal Strikes Extended, which increases by 1% the damage per stack granted by lethal strikes, and by 10 the maximum number of Frosty stacks is increased. So in other words, 4% per stack, and it's now stackable 20 times, which means we could get up to an 80% physical damage boost, which is massive. So that's the general layout of the tree and what we take in order to make this build work. Hope that makes sense. Now let's take just a second and have a look at the different gear options you have. Where I look at skills, where I look at character, where I look at that. Alright, gear. So on the gear side of things, there are some stat priorities that you want to keep in mind as you're looking at this. Your first priority is you want high weapon damage. Now because of that, the Harvester is a great weapon. It does 100 to 150 damage plus or minus 2 or 3. Another important thing about the Harvester is it can perform multiple melee hits per strike. That means that if you swing one time, it can hit actually up to 3 or 4 times with a single swing. And that is the highest, hardest hitting weapon in the game at the moment. It is the slowest weapon in the game at the moment as well, but that doesn't matter because you're doing automatically hitting with critical dashes. And each time your critical dash resets, it doesn't take into account attack speed. So as long as you have another one right away, you can dash, 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 dash super fast. And that's kind of one of the strengths of this build. Second stat priority is getting percent physical damage if you can. You'll notice on my 2 items, I don't actually even have that. But you can farm the vendor for that stat if you want, and I will be making a video guide to show how to farm vendors for anyone who doesn't know. Third priority is the all attributes stat. This is super important because it gives not only ferocity, but it also gives us some extra damage evasion through agility, some extra spell evasion through willpower, extra health, all those important things. We want as many sockets as we can get on our weapons, 2 to 3 at minimum, and we want to put in those physical damage as much as possible. If you don't have all flawless physical damage, rend damage is fine too, because we're stacking that in other places as well, and it will gain benefit from Killer Instinct. Next stat priority is ferocity and percent ferocity. Remember, ferocity gives us that bonus to critical damage, so we want that whenever possible. On this one, you'll notice I have ferocity but not critical, not percent ferocity. It is possible to get percent ferocity on your weapons, but that's kind of what you're looking for as far as stats go. Balance it out. If you find you're dying a lot, go do the arena, get these free legendaries that give you lots of defense. You know, you can swap out some glass cannon stuff for defense if you find you're dying. Really, you should be killing things fast enough you don't have to do this, but it's pretty handy for like a farming Gra score. If you liked the video, make sure you leave a like, favorite, share, subscribe, and all that, but also let me know what you think. Are there any passives that I passed up that I shouldn't have? Would you have done anything differently? Would you not have taken anything that I took? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Tell me if you tried out this build and how it went. Either way, I want to say thank you guys for joining me tonight, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye, YouTubes.